My name is Noelle. I'm a 40-year-old housewife. Today, I'd like to talk about my family. I have a husband who is the same age as me and a daughter who just turned 16 recently. I met my husband in college. We fell in love and got married. Nothing out of the ordinary. Unlike me, who has a rough personality, he is a very meticulous person. He had a peculiar obsession with how things were placed and was the kind of person who would not be satisfied until things were arranged to his liking. I felt some discomfort with him since we were dating. Yet I had this feeling that marriage would change us for the better, but reality wasn't so sweet. After we got married, his meticulousness only increased. I had to adjust every aspect of my life to conform to his rules. No matter how tolerant I am, I can't accept all of his behaviors. Sometimes we would even end up in heated arguments. Every day passed in such a blur that there was not even a moment when I could rest. My daughter was born in the midst of such circumstances. My husband was delighted with our daughter, who came into our lives 2 years after our marriage. I thought this might bring some peace to our daily life. I was relieved, just by myself. However, my husband's attitude changed dramatically soon after. When a child is born, it's normal to adjust the rhythm of life to suit the child. Yet my husband didn't like that he couldn't keep his routine, and when our daughter squealed in the middle of the night, he would hurl strong words at her. Furthermore, he declared that he would not involve himself in child-rearing at all. I don't know how many times I have tried to divorce him because of his selfish attitude. Still, for the sake of our daughter, I gritted my teeth and endured. Every day, I fought desperately to protect my daughter, risking my own life. As if to mock my struggles, another tragedy was about to strike, and the cause was the very existence of the daughter I had fought so hard to protect. It's often said that children resemble their fathers, but I absolutely didn't want my precious daughter to resemble that man. Fortunately, her facial expressions were similar to mine. I thought everything would be okay. I believed so, but despite my wishes, as she grew up, her personality started to resemble my husband more and more. Around the age of 10, she started complaining about my cooking and became upset or threw tantrums when she didn't like the way things were placed or cleaned. Lately, with the onset of her rebellious phase, she even started to hurl harsh words at me. Of course, I didn't always let her have her way and often argued back. As if to break my heart, my husband sided with our daughter and started blaming me. When attacked by both of them, I couldn't fight back. Ultimately, my life became one where I was being constantly criticized, and then the day finally arrived. From the morning, I was feeling lethargic. I had a slight fever and was feeling dizzy. I was so unsteady that I couldn't walk straight in the house. I couldn't even stand and was stuck sitting on a chair. Despite seeing me in this state, neither my husband nor daughter said a single kind word. Instead, he barked at me. "Hey, where did you put my tie? The red one, the one I used 2 months ago." "Hey, did you wash my socks?" "Mom, where did you put them?" Thus, they were only thinking of themselves. It's just a tie, just socks. Why do they make such a big deal out of such trivial matters? Couldn't they pay attention to me just for today? Somehow in my hazy consciousness, I managed to see them off, and then I collapsed in the hallway. The next thing I saw was the familiar ceiling of the living room. I had been sleeping on the couch. It seems I had moved to the living room unconsciously. Although I was still feeling tired, thanks to a good rest, my condition had improved. I was awake, but there was a pleasant feeling as if part of my brain was still asleep. Being unwell was the cause, but I wonder when the last time I have slept so soundly. I gave up trying to escape from that comfort and went back to sleep. When I woke up next, it was already dark outside, and when I reflexively looked at the clock, it was past 5 in the evening. I felt the blood drain from my body all at once. I hadn't done most of the household chores, such as laundry and dinner preparation. I have to at least make dinner. I jumped up and headed to the kitchen. Since there was no time to go shopping, I managed to put together a menu using only leftovers. "I'm home." My daughter came home at the worst possible time while I was still scrambling. "Wait, you're still making dinner? That sucks." "I'm sorry, it'll be ready soon." Ignoring my apology, my daughter went into her room. Soon after, my husband came home from work. "What, you're still cooking dinner?" His words were filled with obvious discomfort. He has a meticulous routine after coming home, so he must have noticed something was different. After saying only that, my husband went into his room. He starts eating 15 minutes after he begins to change his clothes. That was also part of his routine. This means I only had 15 minutes left. I cooked desperately. Even if the cutting was rough, even if I messed up the seasoning, I couldn't stop cooking. If I didn't finish before my husband came out of his room, I wouldn't know what would happen. I managed to finish plating just before my husband came out of his room. I made it. I could feel the tension draining from my body. But then, what the hell? Who could eat this? That was my husband's outcry. "What's wrong?" "What's wrong, you say?" You have some nerve asking that. My husband was inexplicably worked up. I didn't understand the cause of his anger. "This stir-fry, you overcooked it. The color is off, and the vegetables aren't even uniformly cut." "I'm sorry, I was a bit pressed for time today." "Time? You're not working. You have plenty of time." I couldn't forgive that single sentence. As if I wasn't doing anything at all. Why do I have to be spoken down to by a husband who doesn't even notice my discomfort? I have no time at all. Before I knew it, I was screaming with all my might. Do you have any idea how much I struggle every day? In a rush of emotion, I found myself screaming. It seemed to be an unexpected reaction for my husband. I saw him take a step back, his eyes filled with a frightened look. "What struggle? House chores can be done at your own pace, isn't it easy?" he challenged. "What do you know? It's not like I can just do them at my own pace," I countered. By then, I couldn't stop myself. "I was feeling really sick today, you know. I pushed through and made dinner, and you didn't even take a bite. How do you think that makes me feel?" I felt tears trickling down my cheeks. The emotions I had been holding back had finally exploded. Seeing my husband's face turn pale, I managed to calm down a bit. I was short of breath. My breathing was disrupted and I felt dizzy from all the shouting. But still, I waited for my husband's response. A simple apology, a single "I'm sorry" would have been enough. "Don't mess with me." That tiny spark of hope was extinguished by his trembling words. "Do you have any idea how much I struggle in the world to support our family? So you're saying I'm just living easy and free? I'm saying your job is to support me so I can focus on my work. That's just an excuse. I'm not your slave. Don't talk back to me." Just a little more and my husband would have raised his hand at me. I knew it instinctively, but I couldn't back down now. As I prepared to confront him with my next words, it happened. "What on earth are you doing?" Our daughter burst out of her room. "Your voices can be heard outside. Stop it. It's embarrassing." "Don't stop me. It's her talking nonsense that's the problem. It's you being selfish." "Just be quiet." My daughter's reprimand made us stop arguing. Then I explained to her what had happened. After hearing both me and my husband's sides, my daughter turned to me and said, "Honestly, Mom, you're the one who's wrong." Her words shocked me to the core. "Why?" Because housework is your job, isn't it? Dad can't afford to take time off work, even when he's not feeling well. That's right, you're too lenient on yourself. My husband's face as he spoke after my daughter filled me with resentment. Mom is always late with her chores. Even today, you haven't done the laundry yet. That's right, and you're not efficient. You can't even fold the laundry properly. Their words shattered my emotions into pieces. So you're both saying I'm not trying hard enough? Maybe you're not trying hard enough. I could probably do it better and faster. Yeah, you're too laid back. I bet we could manage without you, Mom. My daughter's words cut deeper than anything else. So was I the dispensable person? I thought we were a family, but could they dismiss me so easily? Having been confronted with this cruel reality, I found myself running out of the house. Before I knew it, I was in a pitch-dark park with no streetlights. My feet hurt. Sitting on a park bench, I realized that I had run out without even putting on my shoes. My tears had long since dried up, and my mind was blank. How long had I been sitting like this? Even if I stopped thinking, the harsh words would never disappear. My heart wouldn't heal. Recalling the words of my husband and daughter, I could feel my broken heart filling with resentment. I will never forgive them. They, my family who trampled on my feelings, must face punishment. My fighting spirit was quietly burning. The next morning, I flawlessly finished the cleaning and laundry. And for breakfast, I prepared a menu as extravagant as a dinner at a famous restaurant. By the time I finished preparations, my husband and daughter arrived in the living room almost simultaneously. Without making eye contact with me, they both took their seats. Come on, let's have breakfast. Upon my words, their faces seemed to stiffen even more. Mom, what's going on? Today's breakfast is really fancy. Instead of my frozen husband, my daughter asked me. Well, isn't it your 16th birthday today? Did you forget? Huh? Yeah, I did forget. You should at least remember your own birthday. Right, Dad? Huh? Yeah. After exchanging curt conversation, the two started breakfast with awkward movements. The dining table was not filled with cheerful conversations, and it was clear that both were fully observing my behavior. Was it because they were unaware that they had hurt someone, or just didn't want to admit it? It's understandable with my husband. After all, he's a stranger. But my daughter, she's the one I gave birth to and raised. I wished she would grow up to be a more considerate, kind person. It's not entirely wrong to say that daughters resemble their fathers, but she should have been able to understand with proper upbringing. I do have regrets, but it's a moot point now. Listen, just one word from me changed their expressions. What's going on? My husband's voice shook as he asked back. Starting today, I'm leaving this house. At that moment, they both paled simultaneously. Hold on. Why? Why? You said you could do the housework better than me. I didn't say anything like that. Yes, you did. I'm sure you said it. I have never cut off my daughter's words so strongly until now. Whether she was shaken by my attitude or not, she didn't argue further. Next was my husband's turn. You also said it. You said I have more free time than you because I'm at home. I didn't mean it like that. Does such an excuse work in the real world? He didn't answer. Don't misunderstand. I'm moving to another house starting today, but it doesn't mean I won't come to this house. Stop. Today's my birthday, right? You're going to celebrate, right? My daughter pleaded with a face that seemed about to cry. I looked at her face and laughed. I'm sorry. I'm serious about this. As I watched my daughter crumble on the spot, I quietly stood up. Well, I'm off. I left the house to the sound of my husband and daughter's screams. That day, I booked a room in a hotel a short distance from the house. From there, I rented an apartment on a monthly basis and started buying the necessary items. Even while I was busy, my phone was flooded with messages from the two. Apology messages and calls from my daughter were coming in every 5 minutes. My husband, it seems, is still unable to admit his fault. I keep receiving messages from him saying things like, "What you did was outrageous." I've left all the messages from the two of them unread. It's really convenient these days being able to show my intentions without doing anything. 2 nights after leaving the house, I returned home once. As I opened the front door, my daughter came running up to me at an amazing speed. "Mom, you came back." "I just came back to pick up something I forgot." I untangled myself from my daughter's arms, which were wrapped around me like a hug, and headed for the living room. Since I had only been gone for 2 days, there was no change in the living room as expected. However, the kitchen was piled high with convenience store lunchboxes, ramen cups, and bottles. Worse than that was the bathroom. Laundry had been left unwashed there. Both my husband and daughter often complain about the way I cook and fold the laundry. However, neither of them can do household chores like cooking and laundry at all. Of course, knowing that, I left home, so the current disaster is within my expectations. My husband was in the living room, but due to his pride, he turned his face away after just a glance at me. I pulled away from a sobbing daughter and left the house silently that day. 1 week later, when I returned home to check on them, the house was already filled with garbage. These two who never clean up or even take out the trash. Even so, the mess was far beyond my expectations. "Mom!" My daughter's face, which emerged as if pushing through the garbage, was horribly dirty and her hair was disheveled. She should be able to take a bath by herself, but it was clear that her life was falling apart at an unsustainable level. And at this point, my husband finally admitted his fault. "I was wrong. I'm really sorry." My husband kneeling on the garbage, rubbing his forehead against the garbage. Looking at him, I gently said, "Don't think you're going to be forgiven just by prostrating yourself." I felt a moment when the air froze for the first time. My husband's face, with his eyes wide open, was filled with despair. Next to me, my daughter was breaking down in tears. "If you really feel sorry, first clean up this house. If you can't do that, I'll divorce you." I get it, so please, forgive me." My husband jumped up and started to stir the trash around. He doesn't even know how to clean up in the first place, so it can't be helped. In the end, I proceeded with the cleaning while giving instructions to the two of them. It wasn't until 3 days later that everything was perfectly cleaned up. Now, shall we continue the birthday party? My husband and daughter lying in the living room, which is now cleaner than before. Looking down at the two of them, I deliberately said that cheerfully. From then on, all the housework was taken over by my husband. Even my daughter, who used to side with her father, is now on my side. Those days were very hard and painful, but now I realize that it was necessary.